100 episodes. Can you believe it? We've reached a major milestone here at Gaining the Technology Leadership Edge, and we're celebrating by doing something huge. Now, over the past 100 episodes, we've interviewed some of the brightest minds in tech, and today we're distilling their wisdom into 10 powerful leadership lessons that you can use today. Feeling like your leadership skills could use a boost? Wondering what separates good leaders from exceptional ones? Well, this is the episode you absolutely cannot miss. We're not just recapping, we're giving you the actionable insights you need to level up your leadership game. Stick around to the end because your career will thank you for it. All right, let's dive into leadership lesson one. Remember that episode where we explored the cutting edge of industry with Elevate? In how AI is quietly revolutionizing the industrial world, they dropped a truth bomb that every leader needs to hear. Embrace and understand emerging technologies like AI to drive innovation and transformation within your industry. Leaders must remain forward thinking. Are you ready to discover how to put that into action and ensure that you're not left behind? This lesson's a game changer, and we're just getting started.
But that tech piece about being able to remotely update your software and remotely use your service tools with any of the major suppliers through Elevate is, it's a game changer.
Yeah.
And there's edge data that they're going to want to share peer to peer as well as to the cloud. So we're seeing a lot of investment being made there on sensor packs, data sharing, data storing, as well as data back to the cloud, right? So I think that smart edge is really going to increase. The other thing is obviously a lot of news and trends and everything that's happening in the AI space. And our OEMs are aware that this is going to impact our industry. They don't think it's going to be something that's necessarily commercially available in the next few years, but the ones that are looking out 5, 10 years from now go, okay, these AI services, if it's like the Gemini or if it's like the Chat GPT or whatever it is, right? That there are going to be really great services that they're going to be able to plug their data sets into. So what they're thinking is, hey, we have 15 years of service data, historical service data. And if we have all of our machines connected and we're connecting all that machine data and we're feeding that back into whatever the service AI service tool we're going to be using in the future, we're going to start to be able to provide a lot more recommendations out here to our customers. And so when this happens, you have a more complex machine and then you have an aging workforce. This data and these new AI services are going to provide an opportunity for OEMs to offer better service, better tools, ultimately better customer satisfaction to their customers.
Well, that's obviously real-time data is really important to making decisions. If you're constantly like behind the times, like I remember a project I had to do years ago for Transamerica Life Insurance Company, and they would get these flat file insurance data files, and it would take 24 to 48 hours to update. Their
Yep.
system was super slow, and they tasked me to cut that time down. I got it down to about 4 minutes, just by like directly parsing the file. And what happened was the salespeople were able to make better choices about which customers to focus on because they could see where the money was going, where the money was coming in much, much faster. So, all right, let's move on to lesson number two. Remember that episode where we uncovered Snap Build's secrets to slashing construction times? In Snap Build's secret to slashing construction times by 25%, they revealed a crucial insight. Focus on efficiency and optimization. Leaders should seek innovative ways to improve processes and achieve measurable results. Are you ready to learn how to streamline your operations and achieve game changing efficiency? This lesson is about to unlock a new level of productivity for you.
Great question. So, look, at the end of the day, what the philosophy that Snap.Build has is that we are trying to sell speed. In this day and age, the arcane ways that the draw management process. In other words, in short order, in the lending industry, if you are a builder and you go get a loan from a traditional bank, you have to put out quite a bit of money on the to what they call front the money, so that you can buy your trades, you can buy your different inventories of what you need, right? To actually materials to build a house. Then you've got to aggregate all that information, hand it into the bank. The bank then has to order an inspection to make that a reality. Then they say yes or no. And then they finally come back and go, okay, builder, here's your money. That could be 4 to 5 weeks from the time that you actually submitted for repayment. And they say, okay, here's your money. And by the way, you probably don't get it all because we didn't allow something. Or by the way, also you can't do anything more than one draw, what they call that whole process, a draw per month. We've revolutionized that. We've literally said what we're selling is we're selling speed. Okay. So our platform says, I don't care how many draws you want to do in a month. As you incur an expense and something is complete, put that in directly into our system via our interface, put that into our system, and we'll pay that within 48 hours. So it is a continuous loop, right? Rather than that time of 4 to maybe 5 weeks and the builder having to float the cash and come out of pocket to pay their vendors and all. We stop all of that. Mr. Builder, we take care of that. So we have revolutionized in selling the speed. And what we find is that when utilizing our process and our software, our fintech that goes with this, that we can average a little over 3 months increase for that builder in shortening their duration to build. So if there used to be 12-month build cycle, now it's a 9-month build cycle. If it used to be a 9-month build cycle, now it's a 6-month build cycle. So imagine what value that gives with the cost of money, because we are fintech and what we do, the cost of money as well as the cost of time. So if I can get you to get your house built 3 months sooner and you can hit the market 3 months faster than your nearest competitor and not have to go out of pocket the money to make that happen, is that not a competitive advantage? I'll give you one more thing. We make it a point to pay all of our vendors that are our builders vendors and all, we pay that via an ACH, right? So there's no longer are we paying with checks. And in any other industry, you might say, well, that's just, of course you pay it. Why would you ever pay with a check anymore? This industry, not necessarily. It is a check, and then it is a whole multiple manual process that goes with that. So we've had to walk through, and while we are not at the Venmo, Cash App, PayPal stage of paying people through that because of banking regulation laws and your Foreign Corrupt Trade Practices, all of your different no KYC, know your client type banking things, while we're not there, we are a registered money mover using a technology, a third-party technology that allows us to move things seamlessly once it's verified through that ACH world. And when that happens and it's secure, then the cost of handling a transaction is significantly reduced. What I've been able to accomplish here is hiring in. I really think of it. I have 2 businesses. I have a loan origination business, and I have a software development, software delivery, software company, right? So I've been able to hire some really good loan origination people to help run that business, a chief lending officer, and then their mid and back office that is around that origination business, that's allowing me, which is timely in talking to you, to now shift into building the software side of the company. So, as I told you, the first one is that our original technology stack was not, it was a brute force and a phenomenal business process, but just a brute force situation in which you had to be able to, if you're going to scale, you've got to be able to handle more with the same amount of people, right? So really refactoring and the software itself, and then the architecture associated with what can come on and how quickly it can process, and what additional processing we can basically turn on and on demand has been a big part of that.
All right, let's move on to leadership lesson number 3. Remember that episode where we explored the power of automation and personal branding? Well, in embracing the power of automation and personal branding in the tech world, Brian Kelly revealed a key to success. Leverage automation to streamline operations and build a strong personal brand to enhance influence and credibility. Are you ready to discover how to amplify your impact and make your mark in the tech world? This lesson is your roadmap to success.
But I wanted that I realized how much I enjoyed automating things, which meant, you write the software once and it achieves the task and does the work over and over and over, and it does it very very well. It does it without mistake. Once you've written it, tested it, and run it through the paces. And so I realized at a young age how important it was to automate things. And then as I finally grew up and became an entrepreneur, I realized how much that can help me personally and then my team going forward when you have repetitive tasks that don't really require a human being if you're able to digitize it. In other words, program it into something. And with the advance of technology, and I'm not even talking AI, I'm talking just the automated platforms that we have since that time when I was a software engineer till now, like Zapier and P Connector and other CRMs that are just gotten extremely intelligent. It made it possible to do those kind of things, and it doesn't just save you money, but it saves you an inordinate amount of time, and the quality, the result of the work is always top notch because you've hopefully tested it and run it through its paces.
Yeah, I have to say, you offer a class online about advanced live streaming, and you mentioned this automation stuff in that class. And we have a podcast network that we run, and one of our podcasts in particular, it's mostly a host and a co-host show, and then every so often there's a guest. Well, getting guests through the process was such a pain in the neck until we started automating everything through Peak Connector and using Zapier for things. I mean, to the point where like we used to have a booking coordinator. Well, we still do, but we used to have this booking coordinator who she would nurture the entire process for them, right? And like hold their hand through everything. Now it's just here, fill out an application. If you get if they go into our project management tool, if they get approved, they get a link to schedule. If they don't get approved, they get an email saying, sorry, they decided it wasn't a good fit. It's all done without thinking. Whereas before we used to have to create these tasks, and then she would have to notify them that they were in a good fit or notify them that they could apply. It was crazy. And so it's not even about saving money. It is about saving time, but it's also, to me, it's about putting your best foot forward. So by knowing that you have a process that always does the same thing, you don't have to worry about looking silly to any of the people that are coming, into your world. So you have to have a personal brand, and the best way to develop a personal brand is through video, if you ask me.
Oh yeah, 100% agree with that, for sure.
Do you agree with this statement? I think that one of the big reasons why video is a great way to help develop a personal brand is it's not always possible to meet people face to face and shake their hand, but if they get to see you on video, they see your facial expressions, they hear your voice, and it becomes like they know you. Like you. I mean, I've never met you face to face, but I think if you were to come to Vegas and we were to sit down and have dinner, it would not feel strange at all because I know you. I know who you are. And I think that's a huge benefit for any business, actually. I mean, I actually wish more CEOs would get out on the podcast circuit and, talk up their businesses and not be sitting in an office somewhere all the time doing nothing.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Many things. One would just be the personal relationships you can establish with people like Mike Mahoney. Mike, you're a very tech savvy individual, and just that connection alone could be worth a gold mine because they may have an issue that they have not solved. And even you, Mike, may not have the answer personally, but guarantee almost that you know somebody who could help them. And so the connection in and of itself is gold. That's what I learned by hosting my own live video show, just like you're doing. And that was the relationships I built with each individual I interviewed were worth more than any amount of money you could put on it. I mean, just that alone, that would be the number one reason.
All righty, let's move on to leadership lesson 4. Do you remember that episode where we learned from Eric Girard's proven strategies? In Eric Girard's proven strategies for unlocking tech leadership excellence, he shared one fundamental truth. Continuously seek and implement proven leadership strategies to maximize your impact and drive success. Are you ready to discover how to elevate your leadership skills and unlock your potential? This lesson is about to transform your approach to leadership.
Number one is kind of a two-pronged thing. The first is, I think, in 2023, what's needed of managers more than ever is an empathetic mindset. I think that managers need to bring empathy to the table and be able to empathize with their employees, given everything that's going on in the workplace and in the world, and in people's personal lives. I think there needs to be more of an emphasis on, okay, you know what? I got you. I'm listening to you. I hear you. Not necessarily to become a therapist and a counselor, because that's what the employee assistance program is for and all of those things. But to say, you know what, as a human being, I'm listening to you and I care about you, and I want to get you pointed north any way I can. So I think empathy is the first thing. The second is, I think a lot of new managers don't make the transition, because there's a fantastic book called What Got You Here Won't Get You There. And I think a lot of folks haven't read that book. And so they go into a new management role thinking, okay, I was an excellent, say, engineer. I was an excellent coder. I was an excellent IT manager. So now I'm a CTO, or now I'm, a first line manager in an engineering organization. And I was successful previously doing tasks, doing things. So I'll just do that more, and I'll show people how it's done, and I'll set this place straight. I'll do it my way. And what's really needed is a complete mindset shift from, okay, I was rewarded for being excellent at tasks, excellent at coding, excellent at running an IT organization. Now I am rewarded for getting results through people and leading people. And that's a huge mindset shift, and it takes some time to go through, but folks absolutely have to go through it. To me, empathy is all about not just, listening to someone and say, wow, sucks to be you. Like that's too bad. But really figuratively walking a mile in somebody's shoes, feeling what they're feeling, kind of going through what they're going through. And it doesn't take a whole lot to get there. I love Daniel Goleman's work on emotional intelligence. And I would encourage any new manager to read Daniel Goleman's work, or do some reading on EI and EQ, and just, being able to think, okay, when you're listening to somebody, you can listen and think about, okay, what am I going to say when they're done talking? I can listen with some sympathy and, kind of come back with a stock answer of, wow, yeah, that sucks. Yeah, too bad. Or you can come back with, okay, I'm listening deeply. I really hear what's being said and what's not being said. And I'm with you. Like, we're sitting side by side on a park bench, and I'm listening closely to you, and I feel what you feel. And again, I want to reassure folks that, I'm not suggesting that you become some kind of a crazy empath, or that you have to become a counselor. Not that. That's what the employee assistance program is for. That's what therapists are for. But just connecting with somebody on a deep human level and saying, you know what, I'm listening to you. I hear you. I really hear you. Asking questions like, how are you? No, really, how are you? Can be very, very powerful in demonstrating empathy to get somebody to open up and talk to you, so that then together you can work through solutions, maybe using a coaching framework.
Makes sense. I think the empathy aspect, I really like how you tied it to emotional intelligence. It was an area I struggled with early on, because I've always, in my family, everything's been really blunt from when I was a young child. And so that's what I learned was, just be blunt, say what's on your mind. But then you learn that, not everybody's that way, and not everybody appreciates that approach. So while I appreciate directness, someone else might not. And so I had to learn over time, in order to be an effective manager, I had to really understand the other person. And I think that's where people fall off, is they think it's just about learning about their hobbies or whatever, but it really isn't. It's like making that actual connection and being intentional about it. Like you said, it's not the, oh gee, that sucks, too bad. You're listening for a reason. There's an intent behind why you're listening, and maybe that's to help them at work a little more, maybe to be a little more understanding because they're going through some problems or something. And like, one of the things I always like to do is, when you have an employee and they're on a trajectory like this, and all of a sudden they start going like this, get to the bottom of why. Because if they were climbing the hill and all of a sudden they're falling backwards, something's wrong. And too many managers just go, oh, Joe used to be a great employee, but now Joe, he's dropping the ball all the time. I need to get rid of him. That's the wrong approach, if you ask me. The first thing you should be doing is figuring out why Joe's falling off and maybe help Joe. That's kind of an interesting thing. So, one of the things, you say in your, what we talked about in your intro is that you help people transitioning to management. So what's unique about that? Like, why would someone need extra attention when they're transitioning to management?
Well, here's what I've observed, and this is after 30 years in industry and 20 years in Silicon Valley, is that quite often folks get promoted because they're awesome at fill in the blank. You're an amazing engineer. You're an amazing project manager. And now you're just bumped up to lead the team. So in my own story, I was in a Silicon Valley company. I was on a team of 3, and I had expressed to my manager, maybe someday I'd like to be a manager. He said, okay, and kind of filed that away. And then he came to me a couple of months later and said, okay, I've thought about it. I want to promote you. I want you to lead your team. I want you to lead a team. I said, great. He says, I'm going to have you lead your team. And oh, by the way, one of them is a problem and I want them gone. And it's like, oh, geez. So right away, I'm a manager and my boss just sandbagged me into doing his dirty work and managing somebody out. So what I should have done was been intentional about learning how to set goals, delegate, establish trust, do coaching and feedback. And what I did instead was immediately got into the performance management process and bypassed all that stuff. So I think what happens to new managers is they get stuck into the details and they don't pull back and think, okay, now wait a minute, this is, for all intents and purposes, this is a new team. I'm a new leader. This is a massive change. We need to do some change management. And, helping folks understand who you are, get to know them, help them understand why this change was made and so on, so that people kind of ease into the change and then set roles and responsibilities and be really clear about that. I did none of that. I went right into, okay, how am I going to manage this person out? And so I ignored all the basic blocking and tackling, and it did not go well. This person wound up on a performance improvement plan. And I kind of figured that they would just give up and quit, and they didn't. So they survived the PIP. So now I've got a very disgruntled employee on my team who is going to do just the bare minimum to stay on the team and not get canned. So it just everything I could have done wrong, I did wrong in that. So if I had it to do over again, and I would suggest this to any manager, is that when you inherit a team or when you're promoted over a team or brought in to lead a team, spend time, no matter what, spend time getting to know folks, make sure that people know you and trust you and you can trust them. Sort of go first and extend trust first. And then start with setting goals, delegating appropriately, running a SWOT analysis, and being an excellent coach.
All right, let's get on with leadership lesson number 5. Do you remember that episode where we discussed the importance of employee well-being? In Why Your Best Employees Might Be on the Verge of Quitting, we learned a very, very critical lesson. Prioritize employee well-being and proactively address factors that contribute to burnout and disengagement. Are you ready to discover how to create a supportive environment where your team thrives? This lesson is about to transform your approach to employee care.
Of course.
Mental health, most of the time, gets overlooked, right? So how do you think leaders can prioritize mental wellness as part of their company's culture?
I think that's a really good question as far as how do you prioritize mental health as part of the culture. I would argue that it's not about prioritizing. It's about making sure that your culture is a well-being culture. So it's not a hierarchy. It's all inclusive in all of the things that we're doing. So it's in your scheduling, it's in the communication, it's in what is allowed as a joke in the workplace environment and what is not allowed as a joke. We're looking at space. There's a lot of research out there on spatial awareness in the workplace and how that impacts culture and the well-being and the productivity. We're looking at the policies that the organization implements. So we're looking at time off policy, hybrid work environments, if possible. I know that's a little bit of a touchy subject sometimes for folks. We're looking at return to work policies. We're looking at your health and mental health policies for insurance and what's available. And so I would argue that your culture is the wellness. It's not an integrated part of culture, but wellness is the culture. I recently read Ben Horowitz's What You Do Is Who You Are. And I thought that his definition of culture was a really great one. And he said, culture is the way that a company makes decisions and the assumptions that employees use to solve problems, right? When the cat's away, the mice will play. So when leadership is away, how do their employees then function and work? Do they know that the off-color jokes are not allowed? Do they know that the lower level managers, if they have an employee that says, I'm toast, this project's been really big, it really drained on me, I need to take today off for a mental health day, does management, the lower level management, know that it is perfectly acceptable and expected to say, yes, by all means, take the day. We'll see you tomorrow. So I'm going to play on those words a little bit on you.
No, that's fine. I actually agree with what you said. For a while, I was doing contract work and I would go from place to place. And so this one place was very formal with how they did their onboarding. And so there was like an orientation day, and there were regular employees as well as new employees in this orientation. And I noticed a lot of the regular employees are very high strung and kind of anxious. And I thought that's a really weird thing. Like, why are they so anxious? And then they led us to our workplace. And it was one of these workspaces where there was a wall maybe this high from the back of your desk. You could see the person sitting across from you. It was wide open. You could hear phone calls happening. It drove me crazy. I could tell you that's why people were anxious. They didn't want to deal with that work environment. And yet, in every other aspect, they had a very nice culture there. It was just this open space.
Feeling overwhelmed? Drowning into deuce? It's time to reclaim your life and transform your leadership. The Decentralized A-Team Handbook gives you the strategies to build a high-performing, autonomous team. Delegate effectively. Communicate with impact. Achieve extraordinary results.
And some people, I never thought of it this way, but some people said it makes me feel like they don't trust us because we don't get to be behind a wall where they can't see us. We have to be somewhere where they can see us at all times. It makes me feel like they just don't trust us. Even the executives, they didn't have offices. They just sat out in like a cubicle area. Of course, their cubicles had walls that went all the way up. But it was just interesting to me how, like we talked earlier about how color can change your mental health at that moment, like how you're reacting. I felt like the environment really changed my mental health. And I did not stay there long on that contract. I am glad I'm out of here. This place is driving me crazy. So that brings me to, you've worked extensively with anxiety, depression, and trauma. So what are some early warning signs that leaders should be aware of in themselves and their staff that could indicate burnout or mental health struggles?
So some of the early warning signs that you can look for in your employees or in yourself for burnout, one of the biggest ones is a change of pace in the productivity. So we have all, whether you were that employee or you've seen a coworker that was the highly productive person, they were getting everything done very quickly, very efficiently. When that person slows down, when they are delayed, when they're getting to work a little bit later than they were, those are really good indicators of burnout. You also notice burnout, especially in the tech fields, you will see less collaboration. So if you think about in the tech industry, there's a lot of collaboration with the projects. And if someone is burnt out, they tend to isolate themselves more and do less collaboration. And so they put themselves metaphorically in a box and say, okay, I am going to get my little thing done. That is it. leave me alone, don't talk to me, I'm checking in, checking out, and that's it. And so there's less creativity and less productivity. You also have increases in calling out sick. And this is not people necessarily even that are asking for a mental health day, but they genuinely are sick, because when we have increased burnout, we're more susceptible to colds and flus and just kind of body aches and pains and those types of things. So I would watch for shifts and changes in individuals, as well as the dynamic within your work group, how that's looking.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent answer, because when I was running a tech department, one of the big ones was my developers, because I was a developer myself, and you find yourself like, if you can't sleep at night, you sit down in front of your computer, you start doing coding work just because you got to get it done. And what I would do though is I'd walk into the developer's office, and then they'd be telling me, we just finished this and we're about to start this other function. And I'd look at my watch and I'd say, it's 3:00. You're off at 4:30. Go home, start that tomorrow. And I think if leaders would do little things like that, they're going to see less of those full mental health days. Give it to them in pieces where you can. Why make them, it's a project that's going to take them 12 hours. Why make them spend the last hour and a half of their day doing that? Plus, as a developer, I also knew that coming back to something tomorrow where I barely started it is also stressful. With the tech industry, we have really tight deadlines, long hours. How can leaders strike a balance between pushing for those results and making sure that their team stays healthy?
Yeah, so the balance is a really good thought process, but I'm going to push against the current vernacular. I saw a quote once that I really loved that said, it is not work-life balance, it is life balance.
Yeah.
All right, let's get on with lesson number 6. Remember the episode where we explored the importance of continuous learning? Well, in the one leadership skill no one talks about until now, we uncovered a fundamental truth. There's always new leadership skills to learn, and leaders must be open to learning new skills. Are you ready to discover how to embrace lifelong learning and stay ahead of the curve in today's dynamic world? Well, this lesson is about to transform your approach to personal and professional growth.
CEO, it starts to get stuffed more. It starts to get hidden in their posture, in the way they speak. If the words aren't coming out clearly or their voice is shaking, they could get headaches. That's what I mean. An athlete can work it out with their training and their physical daily. And with a teen, the teen is learning what works and what doesn't. Wouldn't it be cool as a society if we could show teens how to notice that anger could be dealt with like this? Or if you're worried and you feel anxious, you could do these things. You could stretch, you could breathe, you could write, you could do these different things. We don't talk about that in our society, and it's quite a problem. So the teens are kind of, especially the teens I work with, they're learning. They're like sponges. They want to know how, but most people have never mentioned, at least the people that I've worked with, how their mind and their body aren't communicating or how they could communicate better. So I think it's very similar across the board. One of my favorite stories is there was we'll call her Julie. She was an elite athlete and a Fortune 500 company CEO, had 3 kids, married. And I happened to be working with her husband as an elite runner as well. And she hurt her knee, but she didn't know how she hurt her knee, and she was complaining at home. And so her husband brought her to me, paid for the massage. This was years ago. I remember she sits down and she's like, I don't know why I'm here. This is stupid. And I was like, wow, I call that coming in hot. And so I said, you don't need to stay if you don't want to. If you'd like to, I'd love to work with you, just kind of show you what I do. She said, it's my right knee. I don't know why it's hurting. Just started hurting my stupid knee. And I need you to massage it. And I was like, whoa. I said, all right, well, you go face down, just get ready for the massage. I'm going to turn on some nice music and I'm going to go pray, and I'll be right back after I wash my hands. So I come in and she's like, are you going to hit it hard? Just be really hard. So this is one thing that athletes will come in and they'll ask for a lot of pressure. And that's not the answer, but that's what they think the answer is. So what I always do is I hold the area on her knee. Is this where it hurts? Yes. And just give her some validation. I see the pain. I want to validate it hurts right here. Great. Hit it hard. And so that's the other thing that we do is we can act like we're putting in more pressure, but not actually do it. So that's what I was like. Is this deep enough? Oh yeah, that's way better. Excellent. So we're working on it, and I'm finding what I call lines along the body that I know are creating this knee pain, and I know have to do with nothing about the knee. So I follow it up, and she's like, "It's the knee. It's right there." I said, "I just want to know, does this hurt right here?" Ah, yes. I said, "Does this hurt?" I go all the way up to her neck, and I said, "I just want to show you that there's a path right here that's creating some pain for you." So after an hour of working on that, her pain goes away completely in her knee. We hardly work on the knee. And she gets up and she's like, "Oh my gosh, my knee hasn't hurt in months. This is amazing." And I'm like, "Yeah, remember everything that we talked about, like what was coming up for you about the pains in the rest of your body?" She totally ignores me and she says, "You know what I'm going to do tonight? I'm going to go for a 10-mile run." The body is telling you it needs rest. Remember everything that we found in your body. That's what we need to concentrate on. You need to concentrate on rest, on trust, on different types of recouping your sanity. And so she didn't go on the run. And within weeks, she calls me. Everything was going better at work. Everything was going better with her husband. Her husband called me to thank me, all from knee pain, but it wasn't really coming from her knee. It was coming from the way she was responding to her knee and responding to her world as so much pressure on her. And that type of pressure can show itself in different parts of the body. And so that's one of my favorite stories. She was still running probably 40, 60 miles a week at that time, but it helped her communication. And she's nicer to her body now.
That's a great story. How can body-mind communication help them manage stress more effectively?
Great question. So what I like to do is, if you don't have someone like me to work with, if you're just by yourself, you have some chronic pain. Let's just say you have headaches. So one of the things that you can do, and you know that the headache gets worse when you have stress, with the specific spot on your head that's hurting. Is it actually coming from your head? Is it coming from your neck? Is it coming from your jaw? Same thing in the neck.
So let's move on to leadership lesson 7. Do you remember that episode where we learned about building strong community relationships? And community engagement experts share top techniques? We uncovered a fundamental truth. Build strong relationships with your community and stakeholders through effective engagement strategies. Now, are you ready to discover how to connect with your audience and build lasting partnerships? This lesson is about to transform your approach to community building.
Yeah. That actually has been one of the main things when I started Go Architect about 6 years ago. One of the first things that we did and continue to improve on is how the proposals for a specific organization are getting to the public. The very old school approach way back in the day was to have a physical copy that people would have to go to a city council meeting or something to receive a copy. Then we kind of upgraded, and maybe it was a PDF that was available, or if you're lucky, there was, again, something that was available to you statically. But that doesn't really do a great job when it comes to, for example, translating the plan for people of different ethnic groups. It doesn't do much in the terms of like having a video or some sort of other explainer tool. Obviously, people learn a lot from video. You really can't do that with a PDF or certainly a printed copy. So we focused on moving all of that to interactive websites, online platforms where people could watch a video, watch an animation, translate it if necessary, even run different scenarios where you have these interactive kind of cost components where you can play around with it. I think that minimum of accessibility is kind of where we started. And then from actual community outreach, we designed a program called Engage, which actually is a free program that anyone can use and go to. It's called engagebygo.com. And that tool takes a lot of the in-person community engagement that we do, for example, with sticky notes, write a sticky note and place it on a board. It takes that activity but makes it digital. So now you can upload an image and you can say, okay, allow every person to place 3 sticky notes. And then you can send that survey link to hundreds or thousands of people, and they can place their sticky notes on their own time, in their own language, etc. And then you can receive all of those things in your digital dashboard, and you can see filter again, you can export it, translate it, all that kind of stuff. So that's just an example of how we take something that's traditional, we apply a little bit of technology, and we come out hopefully with something that's useful to our clients, to the community.
How do you think Engage is going to transform the way communities interact with big projects?
Well, hopefully, right? It's still very early stage, but my dream is that it is used on large scale projects where there's a lot of barriers, or at least perceived barriers, to get people involved. So, for example, I live here in Chicago. There's all kinds of public projects happening with the lakeshore, for example. And right now, you have to go to one of those meetings. You have to fill out the paperwork that they want you to fill out, participate, all that kind of stuff. And I don't really understand why that's the only method. I don't think we'll ever replace in-person community meetings, and maybe we shouldn't, but we can definitely subsidize or kind of merge tactics. So I would like to see it be used for a major project where community input is important and have it be an effective tool. It's good for qualitative research where people are typing their responses. It even has quantitative research where people are doing like ratings from 1 to 5 stars on the sticky notes. There's a bunch of different ways that you can use it. And I think we're just at the beginning of the journey.
And to me, it sounds like a great idea, because trying to get community buy-off on certain things is difficult. And not everybody has the time to attend a meeting, or maybe they're not feeling well. So even, having a virtual way to give their input is huge. And I applaud you for coming up with an idea like that, because it's one, I mean, I live in Las Vegas, where I feel like they're constantly restructuring the roads nonstop. And there's a meme that goes around where there's like the construction guys in the orange, and they're like, okay, well, we need to start working on something over there. Because it's just what they do here. They interrupt the flow of traffic everywhere. They even put up cones for weeks and then never do anything, and then take the cones down. And just kind of go, not sure what you were up to here, but okay. So
for decoration,
what are some trends that you see that have the potential to maybe reshape the future of architecture? Some technological
trends. Well, I think in general, people expect more. They expect a higher quality product. They expect a product or an outcome that has been vetted financially, been vetted by the community. There's just more expectations that when something is built, it's going to actually work for the people that it's designed for. Part of that is because buildings are extremely expensive, and there's no indication that they're going to be cheaper anytime soon. So it is, every hour that you spend on the planning hopefully saves you, thousands of dollars or tens of thousands of dollars later on.
Okay, we're getting close. Leadership lesson number 8. Do you remember that episode where we explored the inner workings of a successful AI-powered business? And inside a $20 million AI-powered business operation, we uncovered a fundamental truth. Understand how to implement and scale technology in business. Are you ready to discover how to harness the power of technology to drive growth and innovation in your organization? This lesson is about to transform your approach to business strategy.
Oh man, it allows you to be able to ensure that you have consistent, scalable, processes that are designed to meet the needs of your buyer or your audience. And that's key because regardless of the size of your organization, you have different individuals within your organization that have different levels of skill sets. You've got the person who's a senior guy and he's been with your organization for 20 plus years. He knows everything inside and out. But you've got junior people coming in year one, and they're at a different level, and they have different understandings of the business, different understanding of the customers. Using AI and automation, you can do several things. One, you can make sure that everybody has the same ability to execute in a way that impacts the customer in the best way, regardless of whether it's sales, marketing, customer service, or operations. It's really about delivering that experience consistently.
So, have you done any kind of research, or has there been any research done on what kind of impact using AI to streamline business operations gives? Say, what kind of edge it gives to one company who does do it and another one who doesn't?
Yeah, there is a lot of data, a lot of research, a lot of statistics on the impact that it has once organizations implement. I'll give a use case. Let's talk about HubSpot. HubSpot's an interesting use case because
Feeling overwhelmed? Drowning into deuce? It's time to reclaim your life and transform your leadership. The decentralized A-Team handbook gives you the strategies to build a high-performing, autonomous team. Delegate effectively. Communicate with impact. Achieve extraordinary results.
one, we're a HubSpot partner. Two, HubSpot has a ton of AI, Gen AI tools into their product, but they brought AI into their organization. They were using a tool called Maven AGI. The reason that they wanted to use this tool was, again, talking about the use case that we were talking about, they wanted to ensure that their senior customer service reps and their junior customer service reps could deliver to their customers with the same impact without having so many follow-up meetings. They were able to implement an internal Gen AI tool that allowed them to ensure that every customer service agent could put in a question, answer it, and then reduce the number of callbacks. HubSpot being a tech company, they would have some complex use cases with their customers where their customers needed to implement code. The tool would automatically create the code for them, right? Even if you're not a developer, it's creating the code. With this, they were able to reduce the number of callbacks that they had by 25%. That's pretty significant. That's a huge reduction in follow-up meetings. Additionally, they were able to reduce research time by 40%, and they were able to increase and improve customer service overall. So that's pretty powerful when you consider that they're a company that many people, maybe even someone in your listening audience, will either have HubSpot or go out and purchase HubSpot, right? Because they have the largest base of customers, right? So from a CRM perspective, I think that's a powerful impact to show you the difference that it can have when you implement it within your organization. And your question was a company that has it versus doesn't, it's almost a no-brainer, right? They're going to increase human cost. And when you increase those human costs, you're also increasing training time, you're increasing error, and then you're just continuing to compound all the other things without it.
Yeah, those are some pretty impressive numbers. Like 25%, that's a lot. And I think many business owners these days shy away from anything artificial intelligence related. But really, I coach my own clients to have a look and explore. Well, when you founded Monobyte, what inspired you to focus on business process automation?
Monobyte started 16 years ago. So that's number one. Prior to starting, I worked at two different Fortune 500 companies in the technology field, helping to implement these types of solutions that we're talking about today. My degree is computer information science. AI is not new, right? And so what's new is the scale and the accessibility in which these tools and the speed in which these tools operate on now. And so that's the difference. But these tools and systems have been around for a long time. It's funny because I look back 10 years ago, I wrote a blog post on Manobyte about natural language processing. And a lot of people are saying, oh, natural language processing, that's important, that's interesting, right? 10 years ago, we talked about it. It wasn't at the scale that it is now. But the reason that we started this was because we always knew there was an easier way. You have to be able to leverage technology to make the lives of people better.
Yeah, I actually have a nickname, Mr. Process, because for a while when I was in transition, I would go to businesses and I'd tell them I can increase your profit by a minimum of 10%. If you just let me sit down and audit some things, I can guarantee you a 10% increase. It was 99% of the work was process automation. You're doing this same thing over and over again. Why are you paying somebody $25 an hour to do that? It doesn't make any sense. We can write you code one time that will do this, and it'll do it reliably. Oh, by the way, the code's not going to be out sick one day. And that's one of the things people forget when they do everything manually. You are now reliant on that human being to do those things. And you even find situations where they leave the company and you no longer know how to do the thing that was done because you forgot they did that and you didn't bother to get them to offload that information. But if you automate as much as possible, I actually had a guy on not too long ago and we discussed how it's important to figure out all of your automations first and then hire the staff to fill in the gaps. They have the staff, they figure out what the processes are, and then they do the automation. But really, there's so much that can be automated. It just doesn't make any sense not to. I even use for my coaching clients what I call a process org chart. And I literally have them list, tell me what the purpose of your business is. And now what are all of the things that you do in your business to drive those to that purpose? And those are the things you should be looking at automating. How much of it can be automated? And the more that can be automated, the better, in my opinion. In reason, I'm not the flip the switch guy and walk away and go to the beach. What are some challenges like that businesses face when they try to implement AI for automation?
There are many challenges that they face. We'll start with understanding. I think as humans, we look for and we think about things with the silver bullet perspective. We think, oh, I'm going to bring into our organization automation and AI, and it's going to fix all my problems. No, actually, if you take that mentality and you just come in and you bring in AI and automation without thinking through your business processes and other things from a planning and strategy standpoint, all you're going to do is amplify the existing problems that you already have. So I think it's very important first for businesses to, one, ensure that they have a plan, make sure that they understand what problems they're trying to solve, make sure they understand what are the outcomes. Then they have to address the change management challenge of ensuring that people who are humans aren't going away, but humans have to make sure that they're monitoring and understand and they're adopting these tools, right, in the way that makes sense for the business. So that's another challenge that you have to address. Once you plan it, you got to ensure that you're designing it. We've had many companies who, prior to coming to us, say, we tried this and it failed, so it must not work. No, it's not that it doesn't work, it's that you didn't design it. So there are things like prompt engineering, creating workflows that help you to do the right things, right? Fine-tuning large language models. Like all those things are steps that people don't think about because we're living in a world where things are going so fast and people think, oh, all I have to do is type in something in ChatGPT and now I've got AI working within my organization.
All right, let's get on to leadership lesson number 9, second and last lesson of this episode. Do you remember the episode where we explored the secrets of attracting top talent and how to hire top talent in a competitive market? We uncovered a fundamental truth: develop effective talent acquisition strategies to attract and retain top performers. So are you ready to discover how to build a winning team and secure the best talent in today's competitive landscape? Well, this lesson, it's going to transform your approach to recruitment.
Like,
why'd you hire me? I'm the expert, right? So why are you telling me how to be an expert, bro? Or sister? I mean, I got this. Can you just trust me to do it? So one of the things I did on the TED stage a couple weeks ago was I explained the team dynamic as not pigeonholing your players, like finding out what people really are passionate about. It's so important. And with technology, you have clues everywhere. People leave clues for you. Like you have a guitar, I have a guitar in my background, you have a guitar in your background. Like that's just part of us. And let's take a guitar, for example. Like a guitar by itself is a body and a neck and strings, but you can't get any sound or do anything with it unless it's a team, you know, and then you need a person to make it work. And so whenever you pick up the guitar, you're picking up your team and you're hitting the strings and the body and the neck. It all has to work together in order to make a sound, and not always is that sound a pleasant one. The leader has to work on themselves with the team for that play to come out. And rock star, brother. I mean, rock stars come out of that exact team that I explained with a guitar. So it starts with you, man. It starts with the person in the mirror, and you knowing yourself and knowing what you're not good at, and then stepping out of the way and just empowering people to do their passion. So let me phrase it like this. People are passionate about things, but no one's going to tell you what their passions are unless you ask. And as a leader, it's on you to figure out what people's passions are so that you can place them in the right place in their team membership can be very valuable to the overall outcome. And I got that from every team that I was on that won major awards and broke through barriers. Is just like, yeah, you hired me to do this, but then you realize I'm really good at this. And so you put me over there and we start moving faster. So it starts with you. You have to be worthy of being the leader. A lot of people are managers and they just want to task saturate everyone. There's a whole lot to unpack there. That's a great.
No, there is. I mean,
question.
I agree with you. I teach my clients, I do some business coaching with tech executives, and I teach them that, it has to start with them. They need to know where their strengths and weaknesses are so they can build the right team. I think one of the things people always see, like there'll be a leader in charge of a department and then they leave. And then a new leader comes in and they make changes and people say, oh, I wonder why they're changing those people. Those people were doing just fine. Well, it's because it's not a good fit for their strengths and weaknesses, and I'm with you about the empowering the people. I think you said it really well. I'm the expert. Why did you hire me if you were going to tell me what to do?
These things. And then we'd be like, okay. And I pull out my notebook and be like, all right, is that it? And they're like, well, can we get this? I'm like, I'm pretty sure we can do that, And
they're just happy to have someone listening to them.
Right.
So I want to delve into this target versus goal concept a little bit. So if, most leaders, they tell their team, okay, we're going to set these goals. You have until, whatever date to accomplish your goal. How would you handle that with a team, but using targets instead of goals?
Yeah, actually, I handle that differently. I use the 5 W's. So everyone's familiar with who, what, where, when, why. And then if you're fancy, you add how to, you're like, oh,
right.
I got 6 things. What I found for working with all these senior level leaders, they don't use those 6. They only use 3. And it looks like most people, whenever they get faced with a problem, they ask 3 questions. How much is it going to cost for this problem to be fixed? When can it be solved so it goes away? And then who's going to do it? And the problem isn't the questions they get asked, it's the order. And when you ask them in that order, you say, how much is it going to cost? It goes to the finance people, the accountants, and they come up with crunching numbers. And they're like, here's the number.
Right.
And then you bring the how long is it going to take to the operation, sell the production, sell the salespeople. And they're like, if we start now, because they always say that, we're going to start right now. And then it'll take 2 months or whatever. So they bring those 2 figures to someone like you or your executives or someone like me. And they would bring it to me and I'd be like, guys, this is a terrible idea. When do I start? Because I'm never going to say no to a challenge. But when you're asking all those questions, a lot of times a leader gets fired or they miss the deadline and they come in way over budget because the order is wrong. And what I found in special operations and all the elite teams, this highly selective organizations that I got to be a part of, they looked at the person that they were bringing into the organization really heavily. And they were like, what are you capable of? Even if you're not a good leader, we can teach you how to be. You know, if you don't know this technology, we'll find somebody to pair you with so they can explain it to you while it's going on. And all of the things focus around people, not money and not time. So whenever you focus on the right person first, that's how it works. That's how I explain that model. It's a 3-part model. It's rule
Makes
3.
sense.
I wrote a couple blogs about it. I wrote my book is kind of like that. It talks about if you give people more than 3 things, they dump it because it's too much. If you give them more than 3 tasks in a day, it's just going to overload them. They're like, I don't know if I can do all that.
All right. Now let's move on to our last lesson, number 10. Now, we've talked a lot about external strategies and team dynamics, but what about personal growth? Well, we found that the most successful leaders share one key trait. They're lifelong learners. Do you remember that insightful conversation we had where we analyzed the habits of legendary figures like Nick Saban, Tom Brady, and Pete Carroll? Well, in unveiling Coach Kitch's game-changing recipe for leadership mastery, we uncovered that core message that the best leaders are lifelong learners. So are you ready to discover how to cultivate that mindset and continue growing no matter how successful you already are? Well, this lesson is going to reveal the secret to sustained excellence.
That's huge when people are, because you're right, in society today, it is all about echo chamber and only sticking with the people who agree with you. And that's a huge mistake because you need to see all sides. How do you know if your opinion is headed in the right direction if you don't bother to find out what the opposite opinion says? I remember when I was in high school, I played baseball. I was a pitcher, and our coach was really big on when we were just freshmen, we would play scrimmage games against the varsity team. And it improved my pitching a great deal because those were obviously better hitters. They were more mature, and you had to work harder to get them out. And even then, I played on the tennis team for a while, and he did the same thing. He'd put us with the younger players, would go with the older players who were varsity, and we'd play against them in practice. And you mentioned earlier about when it's less impactful, a little more impactful. I mean, to me, that's what that's about. Like at practice, he could wipe the floor with me. It really doesn't matter as long as I learn something from it. Then I can take that into the match that I actually have to win and maybe have an edge because I've been practicing against somebody who hits a lot harder, ball comes faster, my reaction time is better. But what do people like to do? They like to be that guy that's number one and mop the floor with everybody because it's an ego thing, right? I think of, when I say that too, I think of somebody like Tom Brady. Not exactly, in my opinion, he's not my favorite individual in the world, but as far as a football player and a quarterback especially, that guy, it's going to be a long time before someone touches him. And I think that what I read recently, I don't know if you know, but he bought a minority share of the Raiders. Mm-hmm. And everyone was shocked because they had a home game and he was on the sideline walking up and down, talking to the players and what. And I thought, why would you be shocked? This is Tom Brady. He's made it a lifetime of teaching other people around him how to be as good at the game as he is. And I think what separates him from everybody else is the mindset. He can put himself through hell, in order to compete. And so I'm not surprised that he walked up and down as an owner and talked to people because that's what he knows best. So why would he change the process that's worked for him his entire career, right?
Right. And if you look at one of my favorite clips, and it happens every year, and I just saw a montage of it. I forget who made the montage, but it was phenomenal. Every year, college football teams bring in guest speakers, and they bring in people to kind of, give some sort of talk during camp. And they could be, authors, they could be motivational speakers, they could be whoever. And Alabama is famous for this because they bring in the best of the best. They bring in Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant was there. Every year it's some really high level person to come in and share with them. And the beautiful part about it, and this was the montage that I saw, was it was an 8-year montage of Nick Saban sitting in the same seat in the front row at each of those presentations, taking notes. And that's the best. Nick Saban, you can't argue it. He's the best. Right. He's, if not the best, who ever coached the game. And he's there every year taking notes and listening and taking things in. And so I think that, to me, when you look at those people, the best leaders are learners, and so if you want to be great, you just got to keep learning.
Yeah, the whole area of sports, to me, it's one of the reasons why when you popped up on my calendar, I was very excited. I think sports and business, they go together. And it goes back to the original question, that I asked you. Like, I think that it develops habits that teach people how to operate in the real world in a way that will make them winners. And I mean, we can use that term, but what a win is going to be individual to each person, but you can use the term winner. And you got people like, you mentioned Nick Saban, then there's like Pete Carroll, that guy. I have a friend who he went to jail because a woman accused him of rape in high school, and he had a full ride scholarship to USC and lost it all. Well, then when he came out, he was going to try to make basically he got her to admit that she lied. He got released early. And when he came out, he was going to try to make a comeback in the NFL. The only person who would give him a shot was Pete Carroll. And Pete told him that he gave him a shot because he remembered him from recruiting him in high school, and how what kind of like a learner he was, and how when Pete would talk, he would listen to what he was saying. And he said, "You're just a coachable person, and if anyone has a shot at this, you do." He didn't last. I mean, it's almost, I personally think it's next to impossible at like 26, 27 years old to break into the NFL after not having played football for God only knows how many years it was for him. But it's just an interesting story because great leaders are like that. They're willing to give people a shot because what's the harm? If he tries him out and it didn't work, what did he lose? A little bit of time?
Well, there you have it, folks. 10 powerful leadership lessons distilled from 100 incredible episodes of Gaining the Technology Leadership Edge. Just to recap, we covered: embrace and understand emerging technologies like AI. Focus on efficiency and optimization. Leverage automation and build a strong personal brand. Continuously seek and implement proven leadership strategies. Prioritize employee well-being. Be open to learning new leadership skills. Build strong relationships with your community. Understand how to implement and scale technology. Develop effective talent acquisition strategies. And finally, the best leaders are lifelong learners. Now, I hope that you found these insights as valuable as I have. Remember, we bring you new episodes every Wednesday at 8 a.m. Pacific, right here on YouTube and LinkedIn. If you've enjoyed these leadership takeaways, please show us some love. Give the video a big thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel for more cutting-edge content. And don't forget to ring that notification bell so you never miss an episode. We're committed to helping you stay ahead in the tech leadership game. Hey, and while you're here, YouTube thinks you'll absolutely love the video you see here on your screen now, as it's packed with even more insights to elevate your leadership journey. Thanks for being part of our community, and we'll see you next Wednesday.